afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Board of Education Board Workshop meeting. Today is Thursday, June 8th. Time is now 5:04. With me this evening, I have Mary Ellen Flaherty Ludwig, Godfrey Azima, Kara Nelson Bakey, Nelson, I'm sorry, I always mess that up. Janine Randolph, and Sherry McCready Pritchett. Thank you for coming this evening. We're going to have a lot of information this evening, and hopefully we'll all learn something new and be able to explain things as they're going along. So if we could all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, next up is public comments. I didn't see a sheet. If there's anybody that wants to say anything, raise your hand. No one signed up either? Okay. And with that, I will transfer the meeting to Dr. Alexandra Spade.
Thank you, Chairperson Carpio. Good evening, everyone. I come today with immense joy and gratitude as we gather to celebrate remarkable achievements we have accomplished throughout the school year. It is a moment of triumph and reflection, a time to recognize the power of unity and the unwavering commitment we have to our scholars and families. Together, we have worked tirelessly to create a learning environment that is grounded in excellence, equity, and inclusion. I want to ground the conversation today on our mission, which is grounded in ensuring that all students have the tools that they need to succeed, to be future ready. I also want to ground it in our mission that through our strategic planning was designed by our scholars and emphasizes the importance that all students are prepared for all aspects of life. And most important, that is done in an equitable and just way so that they are prepared to engage the world in that manner. I also want to emphasize the values in which we stand across the work that we're doing that will also align to our strategic priorities. And also highlight the 5 strategic priorities that lead the work and also guide the goals that we have established as a district. Those being excellence, engagement, future readiness, equity, and high quality instruction and support. Our journey this year began with a clear vision to provide high quality curricula, skilled instructional practices, and engaging experiences for every student in our district. I am thrilled to announce that we have made great strides in this direction. We have ensured that in every subject at every grade level, our students have access to top-notch curricula and materials. By aligning our curriculum across the district, we have established a solid foundation that guarantees each student receives the rigorous education they deserve. To support our students' individual needs, we have implemented several initiatives that have proven to be transformative. Through the Student Responsive to Behavioral Intervention, we have built interventions that address students' challenges early on, reducing the need for referrals. Additionally, our special learning programs and SEL counseling have provided vital support to our students, ensuring their holistic development. None of these accomplishments would have been possible without the dedication and expertise of our instructional leadership team. They have nurtured a culture of growth by empowering school leaders and coaches to effectively support teacher development. By investing in their capacity, we have witnessed a significant enhancement in instructional practice, resulting in improved student achievement. Collaboration has been at the core of our success. By leveraging partnerships and building efficiencies with our departments, we have been able to improve services and facilities. Working alongside the city, we have finalized, or working toward finalizing our 25-year plan, ensuring that our students have access to state-of-the-art resources and infrastructures. Recognizing that our educators are the backbone of our educational system, we have placed great emphasis on recruiting and retaining the most effective teachers, leaders, and support staff. Through effective resource management, we have maximized our impact while ensuring transparency and accountability in our financial practices. We are committed to being good stewards of funding, enabling the public to witness firsthand how their resources are being utilized. And this evening, we will see the work at hand and all of the things that have happened as a result of the resources that we have available to us. As we celebrate our achievements, let us also affirm our unwavering commitment to the safety and security of our students. We have made significant investments in infrastructure, preparedness, and communication, creating a safe and nurturing environment where our scholars can thrive. In the pursuit of educational excellence, it is crucial to regularly review and update our policies. We have dedicated ourselves to this endeavor, ensuring that our policies align with the evolving needs of our students and the ever-changing educational landscape. The cornerstone of our work lies in the instructional leadership and data-driven decision-making practices that we're building across the district. We have built robust data systems and structures that facilitate informed decision-making to improve student practice. By developing the capacity of our school leaders, coaches, and staff to provide effective feedback, we have empowered our educators to support student development. Through cycles of improvement, we have witnessed remarkable growth in teacher capacity, ultimately leading to improved student achievement. Our commitment to enhancing learning experiences extend beyond the walls of our classrooms. Through partnerships in STEAM, IB, workforce experiences, marine science, and health professional experiences, we have opened doors to endless possibilities for our scholars. Our Future Ready program continues to flourish, providing our students with the skills and experiences necessary to thrive in an ever-changing world. Furthermore, we have placed a strong emphasis on workforce development. By fostering opportunities and experiences for students from kindergarten to 12th grade, we are laying the foundation for their future success. To ensure the effectiveness of our efforts, we have embraced research and analytics by building systems that provide crucial information. We empower ourselves to make data-driven decisions that improve student outcomes. Excellence, equity, and inclusion remain at the heart of our mission. We are unwavering in our commitment to reduce disproportionality outcomes and ensure positive educational experiences for all students. Through comprehensive training and learning opportunities, we strive to create a level playing field where every student can thrive. Through our district-wide events, we strengthen our community by celebrating the diversity of our families and scholars, acknowledging and celebrating the achievement of various groups and highlighting their contributions to the world. Our scholars and their families can learn and appreciate our differences that make our community unique. In closing, I want to emphasize that everything we do is interconnected. Our students' growth, our success is always at the center. Our achievements are a testament to the collective efforts of our village, our teachers, our paraeducators, administrators, staff, parents, community partners, and the Board of Education. I assure you of my continued commitment to grounding our work in our why. Our why, our scholars, our families. Together we have built a foundation that will shape the future of our district. Let us celebrate our achievements, embrace the challenges that lay ahead, and continue to create an educational experience that is second to none. I thank you for your unwavering support and for joining me in celebrating the remarkable progress we've made. I am honored to serve as your superintendent, and I am excited about the bright future that awaits our district. With that, I want to highlight the goals that we will be looking at today in the triads. Our first goal is focused on strengthening individual students. Our second goal is focused around business and operations. Our third goal is focused on human resources, finance, and the business aspect of our work. Our fourth goal this year focused on cultivating instructional leadership. for our school leaders across the district. Our fifth goal is focused on the development and refinement of instructional programs to increase opportunities and to provide high-quality instructional supports for our scholars. Our sixth goal this year emphasized ensuring that families are provided with equitable opportunities across the district to have access to the resources available to them. In an effort to support you to understand the priorities that we set, the work that has happened across the district, we have formed a fishbowl experience in a triad format. Today, you're going to follow a group. Each triad will encompass a 30-minute presentation with a 15-minute Q&A for the board. The participants that are here, community members, can sit in the outer circle and observe the conversations at hand. We ask that if you are a member of the community engaging in the process, that you follow the group that you start with, because that will give you an opportunity to cycle through all of the different conversations that will be happening this evening that will allow you to have a deep dive in understanding the goals and priorities for this year. We asked the board for the Q&A portion to wait for the 15-minute allotment, because what we found during the mid-year review was that the board members were asking questions that were already part of the conversation at a later point. And in order for us to build efficiency this evening, we just asked that the board hold questions to the end of the presentation. You will have a document where you can take notes so that at the end of the presentation, you have the ability to refer back to those areas that you had additional questions and you would like to further engage the team around. I just asked the board if you have any questions about the Gallon Fishbowl experience. It's very similar to what we did during the mid-year. What we learned during the mid-year review was that the time allotted wasn't enough, so we added some more time just to make sure that we were able to see the full scope of the presentation, but also have adequate opportunities to ask questions. I just remind the public that the Q&A component is only for the board, because this is a formal board meeting. The stations have been set up in this fashion. So station 1 will have Mr. Pennington with members of his team facilitating the discussion. The board members that will start with Mr. Pennington are Diana Carpio, Mary Ellen Cara Baking. And for station 2, we have Sandra Feois, Munda Asmani, Marianne Shepard, and Dr. Case, followed by board member Sherry, Sherelle, and Janine. Station 3, we have Dr. McBride and Ralph Valencisi, with board members Gabriel Zima, Colin Hostin, and Erica Limon. Any questions? So at this point, we're going to ask first board members to please join your groups. And if you can take your clipboards, because it will facilitate your note-taking.
Thank you for joining us.
No, I look forward to this.
We're going to just do quick introductions. Rob Pennington, Superintendent,
Francis
Speaker? Yep.
Stacy Bergen, Educational Administrator for Curricula and Professional Development. Dr. Debbie Perry, Educational Administrator for SRBI. And then Richard Adams, Special Ed.
So we already talked about the fishbowl. I'm just going to remind you, we can hold questions till the end so that we can get your presentation on. That's all right. I'm just the two goals that we are going to focus on in this station is really goal 1. I know Ralph talked a little bit about one component of goal 1. We're going to talk about everything else in goal 1, and then which is focusing on the individual student success plans, and then we're going to talk about Goal 6, which is really tied to our family center and the work that we've done to create equitable opportunities for our families. So when we look at Goal 1, research will say that the 3 big buckets to improve student achievement are rigorous curriculum and engaging students and building teacher capacity. So that's everything about Goal 1. Everything we're going to talk about today falls into that bucket. We're going to talk about professional development, we're going to talk about curriculum, we're going to talk about teacher capacity, we're going to talk about SRBI, special education, and we're going to also talk about engagement when we get into the SEL and counseling work that we have been able to do this year. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Bergen to talk a little bit about curriculum and professional development.
Good evening. So this journey began almost 2 years ago with looking at the curricula and the curricular resources that existed in Norwalk. It was determined that we needed to do a little work. And so over the last 2 years, we have dug deeply into, at first, K-5, looking at the literacy resources that existed in the district. And we began to write units of study that were based in a curricular resource called Wonders and school-wide. The reading and the writing programs went together. This year, we revised those units of study based upon teacher feedback to fill in sort of gaps and questions that teachers had about how they could better teach into certain skill areas for students. We looked at world language in Spanish, French, and Italian and did the same thing, and also revised and created new units of study. And 12th grade. 12th grade for a long time had not been touched. And so we peeled back the layers. Last summer started to look into what are the units of study for 12th grade English electives and began to rewrite them and give them a new focus across the district so that courses looked similar on one side of town as in the other side of town. So that if a kid needed to transfer from one school to the other, their experience would be similar. Not the same, but similar. Next year, we're looking at continuing to dig deeper into our business program. This year, we looked at phase 1, which was where can we collapse programs, where there are overlaps that don't make sense. And then we focused on rewriting 4 courses, and then next year we'll engage in 4 more, and then the last year, the last 4. We will also look at social studies. Social studies is a new, hopefully will come to fruition. I was on a meeting with the state today where they will approve this, hopefully the state will approve the new standards starting in September, and as soon as that happens, we will dive deeply into realigning our units of study to the framework and the standards set forth by the state of Connecticut. Okay? Now, pre-K. Pre-K was new to Norwalk in terms of really having an established course of study. This year, we wrote 9 pre-K units of study based on the World of Wonders, which is sort of the pre-course to the Wonders resource in K-5. Next year, we will look at adjusting and aligning those units of study based upon teacher feedback, and then we will support teachers in the Connecticut documentation and observation for teacher system in order to effectively gather student data and plan accordingly for student learning and engagement. So we wanted, this year was our pilot year. We gathered some data, but next year we're going to dive deeper into what are the skills that kids need to have and where are they in terms of being successful by the end of pre-K. Now finally, when we talk about our professional development, it's not just the work of me and my and the team that works with me, but it really is a culmination of the work done across the district. It's the work that Francis does with the MLO teachers. It's the work that the specialized learning teachers and department does. It's the work that Deb does with SRBI. It's the work that the school improvement team does with the principals. Together, all of that comes together to create a better learning experience for our students. And so this year, we provided a plethora of professional development across the district for all different types of practitioners, for teachers, for school leaders, for paras, for bilingual aides, right, in order to meet the needs of our students. So 79% of our teacher population gave us very positive feedback that we were headed in the right direction. They liked what we were doing. Our quantitative data in terms of looking at student progress, we have made progress based upon all the work done by all of the departments in the central office along with the larger school community, where we are proud to say that at this point we have more kids above the 60th percentile than we did last year. So we have a 4% growth in math across the district, and we have a 3.4% growth in reading across the district. Next year, we're going to, again, look at providing teachers professional development across the district on very specific days, and then we're creating a program of offerings for teachers and school leaders throughout the course of the year as well, so that the implementation of these strategies will lead to student achievement.
One of our heavy focus areas was really around developing teacher capacity and teacher reading. And we've talked over the last 2 years about our letters cohort, teach reading. And we've been able, at the end of this year, we will have 61 teachers who have gone through the extensive letters training, which is the language essentials for teaching reading and spelling. It is a very comprehensive training. There are 8 units that teachers go through. It took 2 years for teachers to go through this training, and this year is the culmination of that. We really want to focus our efforts on building capacity around the science of reading, and one of the areas that we know as a team is that we're hitting our high leverage educators, but we need to expand this to speed up the process for all educators. So we are going to be building a science of reading committee that is going to really focus on professional development. We're going to start with K-1-2 and really be able to provide some training throughout next year for our pedagogues. We've also this year, we had a full day dyslexia training that we talked about in November, and a lot of positive feedback about that training from our general ed teachers. So we want to be able to double down on that and do like I would call this a 101 training, provide a 201 training, because it can't just be a one and done. If you're not constantly bringing it back to the forefront, it falls to the wayside. So our goal, one of our focus areas is to provide another training next year. We've also used our Literacy Academy, which is it used to be called the Dyslexia Clinic, and that team has been providing training and has found training for teachers. So we've had Linda Blue Bell training for 25 teachers. We've also had the Wilson training, which is really around decoding and encoding. And we want to be able to continue providing teachers with these highly skilled programs to have an impact in the work that's happening in the classroom. And so that's really this building that teacher capacity. We've had a successful year, but we know we have a lot more work to do in this area.
So the scientific research-based intervention team has been able to build out the WIN block, what I need. Improvement teachers have been supporting that with the reading and writing and math improvement teachers, and all staff is providing with that all hands on deck model. We've been able to provide intervention on grade level and extension, and that was highlighted in the Norwalk Hour this week in the chalk talk on the front cover. Should be every day, but we'll see.
And it was above the fold. We were very happy to see that. It was a great article. It was.
We've provided a really good overview of what it is. We were able to provide that training and support for all schools and teachers with 2 full-day PDs on that. And we were able to, provide all different kinds of programming for all different kinds of students, no matter what their needs were. We were able to provide walkthroughs for the district team and really check on the fall into the spring and go through the look-fors and see, you know, how we've improved, what can we look at for next year, go through that as a protocol. Something that's a really great highlight is our number of reduced for summer academies. So we've increased by 18.2%. And something that we want to build out for next year is collaborating with the gifted and talented teams to build out more of that extension on grade level materials to provide a little bit more for all students.
The first goal of the specialized learning team was that we would successfly enter 100% of all annual summary evaluations for this school year. On June 16th, we will have achieved that, which is a feat where all the credit goes to our teachers who are working tirelessly to figure this thing out. The Connecticut Special Ed Data System is our new IEP platform. We've lived in a different platform for many, many years, and change is hard. But our teachers have showed up, showed out, and they have mastered this process. Despite the growing pains that are evident within it, the state's admission, we're happy that the state was able to come and support our teachers here in district virtually. They're offering a session this summer that incurs a paid stipend to teachers to troubleshoot. And we look to extend our professional learning plan that we created for staff that started in spring of 22. It will now carry on through this next school year to ensure that we're not only improving the quality of individualized education, but that the true joy of CT SEDS is that it ensures that we are compliant, and when we are compliant, we are providing faith, and when we are providing faith, kids are getting moved. And that's our ultimate goal. We also celebrate the accomplishment of this goal. We achieved a $31,000 grant from the state, which was granted to us for the support of teachers in needing some time to shift to this process. We look forward to continued successes next year for families because the system is built so that a family can open an email and every document related to the special ed process will be available to them at their range. So we're excited to see that. Our second goal, as we look to implement the conclusion of the second year of the action plan that was built from the University of California audit of the Norwalk Special Education process in 2020. What I said? Wow. My apologies. Cali's on my mind, apparently. With Arizona State, the University of Arizona. Whew, all right. Got that clear now. For the record, Arizona State. I wasn't here for it, but I'm really excited to implement it. And so there are 4 areas of focus that came in that action plan that are related to coherence, to the idea that service is not a place, to our work to ensure that we're not missing services, but when we do, we have systems to make them up, and with mindset. And so again, the work of the department has been tireless in this work. This year, we've looked at the systems that exist. We've identified the areas where the systems need improvement or shoring up, and publication. 4 of the systems that I would say we celebrate success this year are in publishing our bridging process, in the process of planning for ESY, which we will see in just a few weeks' time when the celebration will start. We engage in audits of our out-of-district placements and our case notes to support teachers and paraprofessionals. We look forward to next year engaging families in the re-energizing of our Norwalk Special Ed Parent Advisory Council that will still happen because we need families' feedback, specifically on how the bridging process went with this new plan, but also in the creation, development, and implementation of all of our processes. And then we look forward to publishing them, making them accessible to not only teachers and school teams, but families and students on multiple formats, so folks know what to expect in all stages and spaces of special education. With Miss Services, we formalized this process. We've offered communication models to principals, We're working on the accounting system of the services and plans for making up the services. But ultimately, when we look to our next step, it's toward retention of teachers so that we don't need services. And this process becomes obsolete. That's the goal. All of the work that we do is to ensure that service is not a place, but that the work is embedded within and throughout the entire district. The Dyslexia Clinic Literacy Center is the perfect example. It's no longer a place where you go. Rather, it's embedded throughout special education where needed in the district, as well as with students with general education, in general education who require targeted instruction that's supported by that team. And again, all of the work is to shift the mindset so that we ensure that everyone understands that special ed students are gender diverse and students are rather those with IEPs than the way that they have been described in the past. It's really exciting to see how this work dovetails with MLL, with students in SRBI, with students who require student education, because that's exactly what Arizona State.
SEL and counseling.
Yes. So, while we have been taking care of our brains in terms of looking at curriculum resources for learning, in order to learn, we also need to take care of our bodies. And so we worked this year at looking at the physical education curriculum, looking at what that looks like across the district. The state has some new mandates, so we had to implement those changes. We developed a scope and sequence for our health curricula, K through Health 2. And by Health 2 is really the culmination of high school health, right? If kids take it across the high school, it's not like by grade 10, it could be by grade 12. So we have developed what that scope and sequence looks like. For the development of the units of study, though, we developed units of study for grades 6 through Health 2. So moving forward, we're going to be working backwards and developing those units of study for K to 5. And that's new because Connecticut has never had a requirement for health before, up until sort of like this upcoming year. And so that will be a shift for some of our physical education teachers who will take on that role, and for some classroom teachers who will take on that role as well. In addition, we will be looking at our physical education program again and auditing it and seeing how are we meeting the needs of our kids in a physical way, but also addressing their mental health and social emotional learning.
One of the main priorities for next year is really building out the PE curriculum as well. I think the last time that we had a full PE change was 2003. And so with the new frameworks that have been provided, we really want to update our PE curriculum for those students. And so that is a huge priority for our team next year. We've done a lot with our health this year, using STEM, using the health frameworks, and now we are really diving into physical education.
There's been a lot of changes at the state level that have implications at the local level.
Their frameworks are great guidelines for us to and the teachers have been involved in the process, and I think that always helps with the success for implementation next year. So we talked a lot about social emotional learning and counseling. I'm going to focus on a couple areas. One of our main goals this year was really to implement the ASCA model, which is the American School Council Association. ASCA. ASCA. And part of that is to have a counselor in elementary schools, but also to get a 250-to-1 model in our secondary schools. And this year, for the first time ever, we were able to put counselors into all of our elementary schools. That was not something that we had in place before. And then all of our secondary schools are within the 250-to-1 model, and we're really excited about the work that has happened. We've seen a positive change on the Panorama survey, and I think that part of the SEL work that our counselors have done in the elementary school has been a result of that data. So that is a direct impact to that work. We also implemented clinicians in the middle school, mid-Fairfield clinicians, that are another level of support. This year was the first year that we've done that. We had them at the high school. We rolled them out to our middle schools this year, which is, like I said, another support level. We also added a drug and alcohol counselor and an LGBTQ plus counselor. Now, the LGBTQ plus counselor came from a collaboration with the city and Triangle Center, but it's really been a great partnership between the three of us to have that level of support in our secondary schools. The other change for our counselors in our high schools is that we have 3 check-ins. Those 3 check-ins with students really were a shift than what we had in the past. Required, where they were checking in with each student 3 times throughout the year. And so our data we have is 93% as of today. We're hoping to get to 100% with our students over the next week. But we are close. We've really had a lot of positive reports because as we looked at data last year, we saw that there were students that did not check in with their counselor. So we put in this 3 check-in model. And in 1 year, we've seen a huge shift in that level of support. Now, next year, we want to add to this. We want to tie into our attendance work that our teams have been doing, Sandra and our attendance team, and we want to have our counselors, for the students on their caseload, to support attendance. If one of their students is starting to have a low attendance, that they're doing a check-in to say, how's it going? What can we do to support? What interventions can we do? So we want to build on that 3 check-in model to make it an attendance component tied to that. We also implemented the Wingman Peer Leadership Program in our high schools, which is really about building student leadership. And I think that when we talk about this idea of engagement, I know that the students that have been able to be a part of this have really felt like they've made positive change in their high schools. And we also have Fox Run, that is one school that has done a pilot study this year, and we're looking to expand that work next year. And we're also looking to implement the Wingman program in our middle schools. So that will be something that will be coming to our middle schools next year to build our student agency. If you remember last year, we had all of our secondary school teachers who were trained in the LGBT plus 101 training. This year, our goal was to train our elementary school teachers. At this time, 13 out of 13 schools have all had that training. So every school in Norwalk Public Schools has had that training. And I received the nicest email from Academies, who works with Triangle Center, who said that to have a community that prioritizes this. She's just so proud of Norwalk, and she says that she works with a lot of districts and no one has really done this work yet. So I think that is something that we really done. And next year we are going to be rolling out an SEL program in our middle school starting in 6th grade. Our counselors are coming in this summer, and they are going to write an SEL curriculum. We have a lot of resources. Second Step is one of them that we implemented last year, but Second Step doesn't always resonate with our middle schoolers. So our counselors are coming in this summer, and we're going to start by writing an SEL curriculum tied to the Connecticut frameworks for 6th grade, and then next year it'll be 7th grade, and the following year it'll be 8th grade. So it'll be a 3-year rollout, but we're really looking to focus our efforts on middle school because middle schoolers need our help. Francis, goal 6.
It's a goal 6. I'm so excited. I have time. So, as you know, the Family Center has been established to provide families with equal opportunity to have access to district resources and also community programs. It was created to to, as a hub, a one-stop shop deal where they can go for services, for questions, for support by the family members. We currently opened a pantry at the family center, so we have a pantry there, we have a social worker, we do registration, assessments, we do workshops, tremendous amount of workshops for families. Our first goal was to increase parent engagement, to increase the traffic at the family center by 30%. And we've exceeded that, so I'm happy to say that we exceeded our expectations. From September 2022 to April 2023, we've increased a family engagement of 45.30%. We also want to share that through that engagement, in our next goal, we wanted to make sure that parents have the opportunity to engage in different types of workshops. They've engaged in over 51 workshops at the family center or outside the family center. Like we had a performance of Allocating, a theater performance at St. Paul, where we had 400 families. They also engage in early childhood curriculum development, basic literacy curriculum, childhood, early childhood curriculum. And we also are partnering with the city of Norwalk and our childhood readiness program, where we have a grant together, and they invited monthly meetings from childhood families, Norwalk Acts, and also Family Children Services. That's done once a month. Besides that, I think it's important to know that Norwalk Public Schools and the Family Center has developed a professional relationship with the city of Norwalk and its nonprofit organizations. So we've developed tons of partnerships that I can share with them. But most importantly, what we have housed at the Family Center now is the community of navigators at the Family Center. They're here once a week. So whenever we have family visits and whether it's for housing, finances, for whatever we provide for them, and they need an extension, the navigator is there, and they have a private office there at the family center. So they don't have to City Hall. Some of them are just intimidated. And our last goal was to really develop a partnership with community health organizations so that we could have access, so families can have access to the physicals, to the vaccines, and more than that, what we established as a partner with the Norwalk Community Center, we have mobile dental clinic at the family center. We're there twice a month for a dental clinic and screening, and we're supporting the registration process for them to be able to have the attention they need in terms of medical. Our goal is eventually for next year to be able to have a clinic at the center, a full-time clinic, and I'm happy to say that a few RFPs have been submitted to the Department of Facility, and eventually our goal is for June 2024 to have a medical clinic for our community at the facility. And just a few of our partners, we've partnered with Norwalk Mutual Aid. We've partnered with Feeding the Blacks, the Pantry. We have a grant with Chase Bank, who has been doing financial literacy workshops at the Family Center. That one gets filled in right away. Yeah, because we had one on fixing the credit.
Just want to let people know that we are having fixing the one, we should be contributing to Q&A.
And the last one we did was on cyber protecting your identity and that. We also have Courage to Speak by Ginger Cat, who speaks about drug prevention. She's very well known in Norwalk, where her child passed away, committed suicide. So she gives a lot of workshops at our center helping families that are struggling with those.
Questions?
Yeah. student success plan. Could you walk me through what it looks like? Is it a plan created for each kid with the student? Like what does that process look like? How does that plan implement?
So it's a combination of items. So work with our counselors. We have where they in high school they have a plan of study that's tied to their graduation requirements, and counselors are meeting with the students to create this plan of study. Some of it's tied to workforce development, some of it is tied to the courses they need to graduate, and really building out those experiences. Now, in our middle school, we start this work with Naviance. Naviance is really building things that they're interested in. And our counselors are doing this work, pushing in, working with our students, and Carolyn Schertoff, who's our amazing. Yeah, she has been one of the things that we did this year is we're looking at workforce development in kindergarten. Like when there's lessons that we've started to roll out for kindergarten this year, they're working on the first grade lessons, and that's going to be building up so that students are getting these experiences starting as soon as kindergarten and working their way through. But Naviance is really our hub that we use starting in our middle schools, and then we look at our program of study that really is this focus. And that's part of the intentionality of having 3 check-ins is really, how's everything going? Let's look at your program of study and really tracking how our students are doing. And I think that the more we do that, the higher our on-track graduation rate is going to be. The more we do that, our graduation rate is going to be successful, and really just supporting students so that they meet the requirements needed. But also, if they need intervention or if they need support, they can do that throughout the process.
I like to add to that, when we intake, for example, the high school students at the Family Center, one of the things we do with the administrator is that we have a success plan sheet for those students. And we sit with that student that's probably new to the country or from another state, that requirements look a little different from here. With the family and with the student, we walk through that success plan of what the expectation is in terms of meeting high school requirements to be successful. We attach that plan, we send it to the guidance counselor at the school, and they again meet with the school to make sure that this child and the family has an understanding of what the plan is for them to meet the graduation requirements.
Are SSPs alive, formalized in middle schools?
Through Naviance.
Just
Every
through
student has it in Naviance.
And at the elementary school, is the ask expectation of checking in, well, our expectation of 3 times a year? You don't
Not in
tell.
elementary school. In elementary school, the real expectation is around providing whole class SEL lessons.
For 5th and 4th, or just like
No, throughout. We want SEL lessons. So that's part of our work, is to be able to have our counselors pushing in elementary school to provide these lessons and to provide support.
question about SEDS. Have we aligned our expectations for our parents to be in the system? Like, and I get we've been rolling it out, but is there a place to align, like, here's where the parent should be to assure that the user interface is checking the box for what the teachers are putting in on the back end?
I think that it's really important that we meet parents where they are and ensure that they have access in the way they choose. And I know this can be really tough for a case manager who's got 22 or 23 kids. But I find it really important to ensure that we're communicating with our families in the way that they know. Much like as a supervisor, I do my best to communicate with my staff in the way that they communicate best. Understandably, it's difficult. Would it be elegant alignment to say on a certain day everyone will have access seamlessly into the program? sure. But some people want nothing to do with technology, and that's okay, so we're gonna print it and mail it, and that will never stop. So if a family says no, thank you, we're okay with that. The state's okay with that. We're still going to do it the old-fashioned way, which we probably shouldn't even say, right? The way of preference. Correct. We provided the opportunity this year on 2 occasions, and then through the watching the subcommittee, some of our parent workshops for helping and supporting the access. I think we need to not just plan for those at the district level, but we need to go into the schools and provide school-based parent groups. Come in and here's a computer, navigate around, let's work on this together. Once a family agrees and wants, I think it's actually a bit annoying because the alerts come every single year. Yeah, so they have heard from some families that they get alerts nonstop. Yeah. We've heard that feedback from families, like, please make this stuff. Because now they're receiving more than they ever did, where once we used to say, so I think that we're going to meet folks where they are and we're going to get what they need as well. But we want to ensure that there's access. Regardless of the type of device that's being used, we're helping families access what they want to on that device.
The reading games, those targeted? We target the increase like
3.4%.
that targeted, or was that?
But that was at WEA, right? So both of you were at.
I think that everything that we've done across the district in terms of our SRBI, in terms of providing teachers and students with access to strong and rich curriculum materials, has created a stairway, right, to those gains in reading. I also think the consistency of a literacy block and reading across the curriculum so that kids, a lot of times people see reading as like, well, I only do it in my literacy block, my 90 minutes. But reading is something that takes place all day. You read in math, you read in science, you read in social studies, right? We're reading all the time. And so we're embedding and practicing those skills, all day long. It doesn't just live in this little block. And I think that is what led us to the game. Having our literacy coaches and our teachers trained in letters has added another tool to the kit. Allowing teachers time to receive professional development across the district on professional development days has led to that. Creating protocols around discussion. So we know that research tells us that reading about something and then talking about something gives us time to be able to write about it. And then converse, right? We can talk about something, to read about it, and to write about it. But all 3 of those pieces need to be together, and we have worked in conjunction with the QTEL strategies across the district to make sure that kids are talking more in class. And we don't mean just talking like, hey, what's up, right? It's talking about the text that's in front of them or a problem that they're having in mathematics class, right? And really moving that from talk to discussion. At one of the middle schools, they have done a really good job in one of the grade bands to think about how can I build accountable talk into the structure of the day. And so when teachers heard it was working in ELA, the history teachers were like, well, I want to know about it. And then the science teachers were like, well, I want to know about it. And so it's begun to like spread a little bit. And we're going to build on that work for next year.
And not just that, we also have the work that's happening with our sciences through our leadership development team. There's a lot that is leading to those. That goes out.
So I don't think it's like one thing, right?
Yeah.
We're always hoping for growth, but it's the cumulative efforts of many that move the students in a direction that should, where we should go.
G. I'm talking.
I'm interested to find out what the social studies thing is, because teachers are gonna flip out. They have planned, I know what components, I know the middle school level, the curriculum part is planned.
We have a protocol, I want to make sure we follow it. Yeah. It's fine. We can always set up the time to talk.
So I see the email.
Bridging. What is bridging?
Sure, and thank you for asking that, because I should not be talking these cryptic terms. Norwalk lovingly has referred to the transition from one developmental level to the next as the bridging process. In other districts, it's called the transition process. I think it, in some spaces, got confused with the concept of transition services, and so a new word is born. And so bridging has been a Norwalk term. I often will correct myself to use it because I say transition, but what it really means is our pre-K students shifting into kindergarten. It's a really significant shift in the education process from 5th to 6th when we move to elementary to middle, and then from 8th to 9th when we go up to high school. And so there's a particular element in the annual review where services in the next developmental level are addressed. We have historically had a separate meeting in many cases if the annuals occur early in the school year, so that families can engage in a conversation with the receiving school as well as their sending school, and they're talking about what things going to look like in that. I'm trying to be good with my acronyms.
Yeah, I knew that one.
Yeah, I knew you did, but I want to make sure that you know, folks.
Okay.
So that is what a bridging meeting is. And so when we formalize the bridging process, we're looking at aspects of that transition where everybody that comes to the table is not there to belabor this conversation, but rather to have valid input into what this IEP will look like next year. And really afford families the opportunity to put eyes on people.
At this point, you have less than 2 minutes. You should be wrapping up your final questions and start transitioning to your next group.
All right.
Get 2 more questions in.
And as a reminder, at this point, we're going to continue to cycle in the same direction that we started, so that everybody's in the right location. Everybody will be transitioning to the last station.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, guys. Okay, so this time we're actually going to ask you to start with 04. The reason being is because our colleagues gave us some feedback that the last time we started, we took up the whole period time. And so then we're going to ask you to please go to slide 49
On the big sheet.
Okay? So it's slide 49, and we're going to turn it over to our table partners.
Okay, and our partners in line, and our work.
Your time has started.
Okay, yes, of course, we are the instructional leadership team, and we, Marianne and I, as you know, our job is to create and support the development of our instructional leaders, who then have the responsibility to support their teachers and their work, so that they can provide the best possible instruction.
Right. So our first goal focuses on data-driven instruction. And so we know this is a critical part of instructional leadership if we want to be supporting and challenging each and every one of our students. So when we talk about our instructional leaders, we're talking about our principals, our assistant principals, and our math monitors and coaches. And what we've done this year is we've supported them with practicing these plan, do, study, act cycles that you see pictured on the right. And so what this means is we plan our instruction as a team, we do it, we implement the instruction, we then study the data, the student work samples that come out of it, and then the act is where we determine what kind of adjustments or actionable steps do we need to take. This could be putting in a support for a couple of students in tomorrow's lesson, it could be a small group of kids that I need to pull, or it could be a full reteach lesson because I need to make a modification. So engaging in these cycles is how we really look to see are we meeting the needs of the students in this work really relies heavily on our curriculum folks who have developed our assessments that we look at in the unit plans, our data analytics team that helps us with training our teacher teams and looking at the data, and also our specialized learning folks, because when we see a particular subgroup that's struggling in a school, we need to leverage their expertise and bring them in to support this group. So the impact of this work is when we, in visiting 23 teacher teams this spring, we saw all of the team meetings were looking at student data, student work, had clear agendas, and had clear goals established for how they were going to engage in these PBSA cycles. And it's really resulting in, when we look at our NWA data at the end of the year, and the percentage of students at or above the 61st percentile, from now, we saw an increase of 4.6%, which we're very proud of, and for reading, an increase of 3.1%. So this will be a continued focus for us next year, with a particular focus on standards-based instruction.
Thank you. Teacher feedback. As you, of course, know, that our job is to evaluate administrators, evaluate teachers. And a major part of the evaluation process is the observation of the apprentice. And we do that to ensure that they are engaged in practices that are going to improve the instruction in their schools. They then, of course, have the requirement to observe their teachers and to support their teachers in terms of the observation process. The most important part of that process is really the feedback that they give to their teachers, because that's what's going to help them grow. So we've been working with our administrators all year to make sure that their feedback is what we call actionable. So when they go into the classrooms and make suggestions for improvement to the teachers, that these are steps that the teachers can actually follow, and that will have the effect of practice. And then also we want the feedback to be time bound, so that the teachers know that as they're trying to implement the suggestions that the principals, the assistant principals give, that the administrators are going to come back in a week or so to see the progress they made. So this year, as I said, that we have worked very hard, and we're very happy because all of our principals have real, and assistant principals have really understood what this is, and they have really begun to create and deliver that actionable and time-bound feedback. So our next focus for in this feedback for next year is going to really focus on the quality of the feedback we give. We want to make sure that they're going to be giving the highest leverage. You know, I can give them many suggestions, so they can give many suggestions, but not all of them are going to have the same effect in terms of helping teachers to move to the next step in terms of growing their practice. So we're going to be focusing on helping them to know what the highest leverage is for the teachers, so that the teachers can improve, and if the teachers improve their practice, of course, the instruction will then improve and the student outcomes. So that's where we are. Thank you.
The third goal speaks to our cycles of improvement or cycles of support. And so there are two ways that Sandy and I work with our schools. It's through our monthly professional developments that we run for our principals, assistant principals, and coaches, and also the individual school visits that we conduct. But a third way is the cycle approach that we do. So as you know, half of our schools each year engage in a school quality review process that identifies an area of celebration and improvement. What our team does after that school quality review process is we engage in a reflection process with the school to identify what's a very specific focus that you want to gain some traction on, and then we develop a cycle plan to help support them in achieving those goals in that particular area. And so the whole idea is that we're building their capacity to lead these cycles. So during the first half of the cycle, we really take a role in leading it. During the second half of the cycle is where we start to transition some of the leadership of that cycle over to the school team with support from us. And so we come up with clear goals that we're going to be looking for. Sandy and I will conduct mid-cycle and end-cycle visits to help us see how you're on track to meeting your goals, to give any feedback, to support them with any adjustments. But the idea really is about building their capacity over about a 10-week cycle. And then also that we're in the school rolling up our sleeves and doing the work right alongside of it. And really, really excited that the growth and development that we've seen in teacher practices and student data on the teams that are a part of these cycles of support has really been amazing to see. And it truly is a testament to our school leaders and our coaches and the teachers that have engaged in these cycles. And just to see both the improvement in practice and just their commitment to the overall plan.
So just as we collaborated, Marianne mentioned, with many of the departments of instruction, the teams, the finance team, the technology team, operations team, the data team, we also collaborated with the human resource team. And in the past, they have had, there was a lot of information that they need to convey to our administrators, but they have been doing it in separate meetings. And the administrators were giving us feedback because we saw that they didn't want to be out of the building that much. They love the professional development meetings, and they love the HR meetings. So we worked hard to really find time within one meeting to collaborate with them so that they can come and support the administrators. Actually, many of the meetings prior to that have been routines. But now they're coming home and they're talking about what's going to at our meeting, and we want to continue that so that that the principals need, and it's just the principals need they need to be working with the teachers so we have been very successful, and we're just going to continue that.
So that includes safe our
So I'm going to ask you to please find slide 27.
Because that concludes us.
So for slide 27, I'll wait till you get there. It's a facilities goal, and within our facilities, what I want you to walk away with is that our goal for this year, all three goals, are really to improve the service that we provide and also the maintenance of our school facilities. We have some old buildings, but we really try our first goal was to actually develop a 3 to 5 year facility plan. So we had several studies that we actually used. We had the Roman DLR study that was presented in 2020. We had the Silver Petroselli study that was presented in 2015. The Newman DLR study is very comprehensive. It breaks down each facility, what they need, the repairs that they need, and then it makes recommendations for each facility. This study was actually presented to the full board quite a while ago, and we use it to actually inform a lot of our decisions because it's very thorough. The Silver Petroselli one we use because it actually did a survey of our grounds, and so we use that data to inform this other plan that we created where we combined both studies. And in combining both studies, we created like sort of a scoreboard for each facility. And then in that, we also leveraged a third-party company. We refer to them as ISSA, so the acronym is there for you. And what they do is they come in and they give us a rating for each facility on cleanliness. So that's separate than the repairs that are needed, but also how well we're maintaining that facility. That's given to us for each one, and it's sort of like a report card. And it allows us to do training for the following year based on that, and it also allows us to then set goals for the following year. So this goal is complete, but it's always ongoing because, as you know, our buildings are in need of a lot of repairs, and in doing so, we use this. This is a part of this is a part of that study that has the scoreboard, and then that's the part of the ISSA. As a district, we score level 2, which is actually pretty high given the age of our facilities. But then what we do is every year we're able to update this plan. So it's been like a plan that is a living document for us, and every time we do repairs, we update the plan and making sure that we're tracking where we're spending and what is still needed to be done. The next goal came out of the efficiency study. So in the efficiency study, preventative maintenance was something that was highlighted as an area of possible outsource. When we brought this during the initial board retreat in the summer, there wasn't really an appetite for us to continue to outsource. And so then what we were requested to do is to find the efficiencies by partnering with the city and leveraging the relationships that the city had with their preventative maintenance vendors to see if we could benefit from that. So in doing so, we actually not only created relationships that both the city and we use, but we actually ended up looking at the plans for how is it that we manage our grounds with recreations and parks. We came up with a whole new agreement on how is it that we manage that. I know Kara brought that up the last time. Like what happens when something like Eversource doesn't do something, and why does it take so long to do that? Well, usually when it's a third party that's responsible, it takes a little longer. But when it's us and it's our responsibility, the relationship between Ken Hughes and ourselves has been really great, and they're very responsive. Every time a tree is down or somebody reports something, we get an immediate response because we now have very clearly delineated areas where we also help them out on parts that they can't reach. So we were able to do that, and I think that that's been great. The other one that we've been able to do is a joint usage agreement with recreation and parks so that they have greater access to our facilities. That's in its final stages of editing, and I think that Robert Stowers will finally release that, but we have been working on that all year. And what that does is, as you know, our facilities are used by outside entities. It allows us to use a common scheduling platform. It also allows us to give them greater access to our facilities so that they can benefit from the recreation space in the absence of like a community center. So we also partner with them greatly in that work. Finally, as you know, earlier in last fall, it's hard to believe, Senator Duff announced that there was a special appropriation or reimbursement rate that was given to Norwalk and Stamford. It's a 60% reimbursement rate for new school projects that accredited schools, and it's for the next 25 years. This prompted a conversation around what are we going to do for the next 25 years for our facilities construction or infrastructure improvement plan. We initially sat with the mayor's office and Senator Duff's office. The first thing we had to do is agree on which facilities go first. We call those our Tier 1 facilities. That we leveraged from the Newman DLR study. And all three offices had to agree that those would be the facilities that go first. A lot of it had to do with the inability of deferred maintenance and what would be the most expensive to repair. Therefore, it makes better sense for us to move those projects up. Once we were able to settle on which one of those 6 sites were first, we then had to conduct site studies to see whether we would renovate as new or whether we would do new school construction. That site study was done, those plans were submitted, we met again, and now it's up to the city to execute the plan. So that plan currently is embargoed because what actually happens is there are things like the need for swing space that may involve purchasing land or perhaps even seeing if we could rent space. So now the city has a very comprehensive plan with an agreement of which projects go first. And now it's really about the city executing that. And we feel that we're in a good space for it. We have 3 projects going on right now anyway, so it's not like we would take on a whole school construction project right at this moment. So we have a little bit of time to actually determine that, and we feel we're well pushed for that. And I'm going to turn it over to you.
So I'm going to talk about HR and finance. For HR, our primary goal is obviously to retain and recruit talent within the district, so they can provide quality instruction, but then also while they're here, provide support for them so that they can effectively do their job and support our students. So among the goals we have this year, one is a closer collaboration between HR and finance to improve our hiring process, the frontline system. Because one of the things we found is that the school will identify a need, the principal will post a position, they'll go through the interview process, they will at least identify a person for hire and make the recommendation. And then once that got to HR and finance, it took a while. And therefore the schools are ready for the additional resources, but the processes are taking longer. So one of the things that we've done is enhance the technology, the recruitment platform, where we identify the talent, we bring them in, we schedule onboarding and benefits and all of that, so we can get them in the classroom or wherever it is that they're needed as quickly as possible, because that's what they need is. So our goal was to reduce that onboarding time, and so that's what we're leveraging technology, and we've been able to do that just by leveraging the technology that we have. There are a lot of processes that were duplicated. You get this information at this point, and then you ask for that same information again, and so how can we just do that all at once? So that was one of the goals that we had. The other goal that we had in here.
No, do you need me to move? Yeah, you gotta ask me. Okay.
The other goal that we have obviously is to provide support to our employees, to make sure that we have an employee handbook that's current, that's updated, so the employees know what the expectations are. But one of the things that we also found was that our principals and other leaders are also supervisors, and that may not be their primary training. And so how do we provide them the training so that they can support the staff? Do they know enough about FMLA? Do they know enough about sick leave usage? Do they know enough about sexual harassment? Those types of things that happen, and as a supervisor you need to know, but you don't necessarily get trained in teaching school or school leadership schools. And so the role of HR is to support them in that area, and so we have been collaborating with the leadership development team and making sure that we provide that education to them. Also updating them on recent trends, changes in laws and how things are processed. So we provide that information. That's what that means. Because Alice is going to come back from here. The other thing also is obviously expanding recruitment. Is how do we get the best and the brightest to come to Norwalk? Understanding where the needs are. We have shortage areas and we need staff for. And so some of our efforts is how can we effectively reduce vacancies? How do we recruit? So you may have seen we have billboards on buses. We are on social media. We're on LinkedIn. One of the things that we're also seeking to do is attracting bilingual educators. And so we go to associations like the National Association of Bilingual Educator conferences, and so we send our HR teams to those conferences because that's where bilingual educators can be found. And so while we're there, we also engage with potential employees, potential teachers. We've developed partnership with colleges and universities also, so that we can get some talent. There. So we've been very effective in doing that. We've done great strides in and then the other thing by way of feedback is trying to know what the team, we do these panorama surveys, we understand what our employees are feeling in various areas. But one of the ways we also try to track data through the exit interview process is to have a systematic process of exiting our employees and also getting feedback as they exit. What are areas, what has been their experience? What are areas that have done well in supporting them? What are areas that we could improve upon? And so as we get that feedback from these exit interviews, we share with our colleagues so that that can be incorporated in part of the training. And for the past 2 years, we've been consistent with how we weren't consistent in the past with these interviews. So we have really good data in areas, and so when we see trends, we know that this is not an isolated issue. This is something that we're hearing. If there's some building-specific trainings or issues that we need to resolve, or if there are areas that have really good practices that we see keep coming up, is this place is great, so we kind of share that information. So on the finance side is obviously this year we enhance how we track budgeting specifically with the student-based budgets, making sure that we identify the student needs and we provide the resources within the school facility so that the principals of these schools truly have the resources dedicated for them. Specifically this year, we wanted to provide incorporate special learning, because right now specialized learning is budgeted centrally, and so what we wanted to do is to bring that budget to the school building so that the principals and the administrators of the school have all of the resources for their building. Because right now, some of it is accounted for in the school budget, but some of those are accounted for centrally within central offices. So we are attempting to transition that to that all the funding is at the school. So we truly know what the cost is to educate at the school level. So we implemented a two-phase process. The first phase we do have building-specific projects, and so those were budgeted centrally, and so we have now moved those budgets to the schools, so the principals have access to their school, to their base funding, including those like the RISE program that are specific to the schools, so they have those. And so the next phase is the balance of those resources to move from being centrally budgeted to the schools, so the principal truly has all of the resources. And then obviously we want to be great at how we report our finances as stewards of resources, and so there's some models and best practices that are out there, and so that was one of our goals this year, is to go that seal of approval. And then the other thing that we also realized is that we need to support our principals with their budgets, because this is not their primary resource. There was a comment when I was in New Canaan. We had a guy, he was our Parks and Rec guy. Best Parks and Rec guy. He managed golf courses in Scotland. I mean, he was like the best you could have. Lousy budget person. He could never pay bills. Every year end was just a hassle. Bills are in his drawers, because he wasn't hired because he was a finance guy. He was hired because he's an excellent Parks and Rec. And so we recognize that in the people that we also support at the schools, that our principals may not necessarily be accountants and auditors and budget. And so how can we effectively support them? So this year we actually have an individual that supports the schools directly with their students' budgets, just to make sure that all the questions that the principals have at the schools and the secretaries relating to their budget, are they on track for spending, are they overspending, do they need to move money, do they need to transfer, are they paying things from the right accounts? We provide that information for them, because if we do that right up front, we don't necessarily have to make corrections when we're being audited, like why are you charging this to this account? And so it saves everybody time when we can do that right. And then finally, thanks to, actually Dr. Case brought this to us as well, developing a resource allocation plan so that resources at the school level are equitable. So one school doesn't get more resources than another just because I know the principal or I know the assistant or whatever that is. And so the resource allocation plan basically looks at identifying the number of students to the X number of needs, and that based on that we have a formula for allocating resources. And so we are starting to do that this year, so that one school shouldn't have 3 counselors and one only has 1, where their relative student population is the same. And so once you have these resource plan and ratios, you can do that effectively and proportionally. So that's one of the things that we're also implementing this year in terms of financial management and making sure fair across the board.
So for school safety, our improvement in school safety is always around 3 areas. And the areas are to improve infrastructure, to improve preparedness, and to improve our communication. So that's usually like what guides our goals. So for this initial goal was for us to be able to actually monitor data at the school level. Prior to this, like when incidents occurred at the school level, somebody would write in sort of like a log that was largely anecdotal. And then when you went to go try to pull data to look for trends or patterns, there was no real way of doing that because you just had this anecdotal data. It took us a really long time to find this company, but what the goal was for this year, and we actually just found them like 2 months ago, so I was getting kind of worried, right up to the very end. And they're called NBA Plugin, and what they do is they work with PowerSchool, because I didn't want this to be something that didn't already work with our system, and PowerSchool is what we use. It's our student information system. So NBA Plugin will actually work within PowerSchool, and the same way that school leaders or teachers enter incident data, it gives them drop downs so that then if I go pull a report, I can actually see the types of incidents that are happening, where they're happening, the time of day that they're happening, district-wide or within a school. And what that allows us to do is better understand when students are externalizing behaviors. What time is it happening? Is it happening in the bathrooms? Is it happening in the hallways? Is it happening with a particular teacher? Is it happening more at middle school? And that will allow us to then work with a tiered system to then provide interventions. So then if we're seeing that there are spikes during certain times, then we can analyze why we think that that might be happening. If there's something that's happening in a particular school, I reach out to my colleagues here and I actually ask for their help in addressing this with that particular school leader and making that part of their overall plan as to how they're going to improve certain incidences. So MBA plugins is what it's called. We're going to implement the training in the summer. So I think that next year we will have a much better management of our incident data. Another goal was for us to actually collaborate with the social and emotional learning team. It's really under Rob's team, but Jim Martinez was leading that work. And this was more around like, by the time that we got the incident, it was sort of the result of something, and it was hard for my department to take care of the antecedent. So like, what is happening that is leading to these externalizing behaviors? How is it that we're supporting students? If we see that there's more bullying happening, how can we leverage the curriculum side or the special education side or the social work side to provide those supports at the school to improve school culture, and then have that then hopefully result in a reduction in ISS, OSS, or incidences that are leading students to miss class time and learning time. So that was one of our goals. We were actually able to present on that. Joe Martinez did on what those school safety impacts have been and what those services have been. We were able to present on that earlier, I think mid-year. The other school safety piece it has to do with our capital improvement. So our capital improvement around school safety had to be broken down into 3 phases. It's been funded for the last 2 years, so I'm really hopeful about that and grateful for that. During the first phase,
just wanted to let the groups know that we are at the 15-minute mark. We should be transitioning to Q&A.
The first phase, which we were awarded $1 million, will allow us to actually do the door alarms at 5 of our elementary schools. And these are external facing doors. These are Wi-Fi alarms. And what that will do is if an alarm is triggered, it actually communicates with our Raptor system so that it works with our camera system. So it allows us to have just better vigilance around the school. That initial phase also allows us to add cameras to our middle schools and our high schools, which we recognize as an area of need and that our school board is telling us. The second phase actually allows us, which second phase is for next year, but we'll receive the funding during this year's capital request, will allow us to do the door alarms for the other 5 elementary schools. This one doesn't need it, obviously, and Cranberry doesn't need it. So another 5 elementary schools, and then it'll allow us to do additional cameras at the elementary school, and then we are actually implementing a new communication platform called Mutual Link, and that connects us with NPD, our state troopers, and our fire department. So it actually allows us to communicate with them in real time, and so that's something that we're implementing next year. Phase 3 is the year after that, and it'll round out the door alarms at the middle schools and cameras at the elementary schools. So it's a very comprehensive, it's a 3-part phase to improve our infrastructure. This links to my initial goal for facilities in terms of the scorecards, because I want to merge the 2 of them together to make sure that our facilities plans are also capturing our safety infrastructure. And that's it. We're here for your questions.
Can you just go back to that last slide?
Of course.
So I just want to make sure, excuse me, that I have this right. So in terms of door alarms for elementary schools,
Yeah, take your time.
we will not have door alarms for all of our elementary schools this school year, this coming school year.
For the fall? No. We chose the schools, I think, we chose the schools based on the greater need in terms of some of them are in more populated areas. So the danger of a child running out and actually like running into a street or running into something that could be potentially more dangerous. Those were some of them, and then other ones were really just the incidents that were occurring. So we have schools that have higher needs, and those tend to have students that are elopers. So the door alarms are not just to keep people out; it's also to keep people in, And so then that's how those choices were made.
I would just say that I think it's a priority for all of our schools.
Yes.
To have cameras. So if there's any way that we can figure out how to fund that, if it's an amendment with the city, I don't know, but.
So they've given it to us, so the whole plan, all 3 phases, was actually a little bit over $3 million. That's what we initially had asked for. 2 years ago, they gave us $1 million. This year, they gave us another $1 million, so that's why we had to break it up. And then we're hoping for another $1 million, meaning that's why we had to break it up into 3 phases. So we did present initially, that initial ask was good for everything.
Okay. I think we should go back on it.
Yeah. We go back on it every year. So every year we get another $1 million,
Yeah.
Staying on school safety, we're talking about the plug-in and how you use it for data. Is the plug-in and Power School able to work the opposite, where in case there's an emergency going on that you can shoot out something through the plug-in?
We have actually the Raptor system for that, and the Raptor system is actually really effective. They can attest to it. So because the Raptor system, it's a really comprehensive system. It does all our visitor passes. It does all our cameras. Our cameras are connected to the Raptor system, but then there's an app for it. So every single time that something occurs, we have it on our phones. And so then it's an automatic communication, and all our SROs are connected to it. The person that's in charge of the SROs, and even Jimmy Walsh is connected to it. And so the minute it goes off, it tells you what type of alarm it is. Like today, there was a hold. And so then you look automatically, and the administrator puts down the reason. So then you can automatically see that there's a hold, and the hold is because they're awaiting an ambulance. So then you could say like, okay, there's action that's been taken. And so then if there's like a suspected fire, if there's like a suspected intruder, we get that automatically. And it's a different system than the Power School system, because the Power School system is not urgent, right? This is an incident occurs, later at the end of the school day, you're going to document it so that we make sure that we're documenting what is happening with each one of our students. But for emergencies, it's the Raptor system.
And does the Raptor system also go to teachers in the building, or is it just admin?
Oh, yes.
So it's everybody?
It's everybody.
And sorry, it's on their phones?
Yes.
It's like an app.
It's on the phone because everybody has their phone.
Like on their mobile phone, on their cell phone?
Correct.
Okay.
Do you get any of them?
What do you mean?
Well, it's just for
Me?
staff.
No.
I get them. That's
Oh,
why I'm asking. That's why I'm asking.
it's just for staff and the chair of the board.
That's what I was asking.
Exactly.
I know I get that, but I was wondering.
I
if
see
you
the
could do
emails
Well,
when
we
there's
get
a
the
hold.
email. We
Yeah.
get the email because it's the tier 1. So
But
then
do
we
you have
develop
an
a
app?
system for
I don't have the app, but
communication.
I do get that. You sent you.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, absolutely.
One of the things our school leaders love about the Raptors Learn is that oftentimes if different people in, let's say, the central office hear about an emergency at a school, and you could have multiple people from central office wanting to reach out and try to support and find out what's happening, when the school leader really just needs to be able to attend to the emergency.
We had to do
What
a
is
training
there,
on
I
that.
was gonna say, is there like a
There's
communication
very clear
flow?
communication that
Because that could turn
that the
into like
cabinet
a
has
cluster.
received, including our superintendent, which is please wait for the communication. Do not call the school.
Right.
Yes, because they need their time exactly to respond.
Initially.
It tells you when the alarm is, when or whatever it is,
Yes.
when it's happened and when it's closed, and when it's closed.
Those systems, and that's what we use also to do like our drills. So we're actually like really like that piece of it, the preparedness piece, we've invested a lot in, and I think that we have the structures to be able to monitor it to make sure that we're doing it.
And we're just keep enhancing it, which is
Exactly.
great. Great. I have a question about, on the HR side, the exit interviews. So I think exit interviews are critical in any industry. A lot of people avoid them. A lot of people walk out of a building without doing them. So is that required of our employees? My first question around that.
No, it's not required, but we have really good participation in that. It's not mandatory, you don't have to do it, but we have, I think, over 90% participation in the exit interviews. Because many people leave, the majority of our employees leave the organization with the word. Voluntarily. Right. Yeah. So it's not because they're disgruntled, they're moving, their families relocating, or they've had advancement of mid opportunities.
Right.
So there's really, they take pride in actually giving that feedback.
Right, okay.
And it's been good, consistent feedback.
Well, then the other part of my question is, who's seeing all that feedback? Is it principals? Does Dr. Estrella see it? Are you all seeing it? Like, where is that information
Primarily
going?
is HR, but we don't share all of it. But if there are issues that come out of it that need, like, for example, the principal's attention or individual, like if there's a safety security issue that needs but the boilerplate, looking for a better career and those types of
So
things.
HR gets it first,
HR gets it
reviews
first.
and then shares it
And
out
then
to
shares when
relevant
they feel like what's relevant.
people. Okay, and then just another question: how many people are in the HR department now?
I want to say no, maybe not.
And are you fully staffed? I mean, given we know what's going on, but yeah.
We are fully staffed, but in this process of the budget, we did eliminate positions. I'll get you the data.
Yeah, I can text. Yeah, me too, but I might miss it.
That's right.
Because I was trying to calculate in my head.
I had a question for you, Sandra. So on the facility side of things, in our partnerships with the city,
Yes.
are there any areas of improvement from your perspective in terms of, it sounds like everything's going really well with them, but is there any area of improvement that you see, and is there anything that we as the board can do to help support that?
Well, I'll tell you what the area of improvement is, and you can decide if you can help. So, for instance, we go through like these painstaking processes of identifying what we need, right? And then we go before we put forth like capital requests. So one of the capital requests that we put forth this year was for the heating at Marvin. So we were denied.
Right.
So it's sort of like I'm keeping score of everything we need, but I'm at the mercy of the city's funding and their decision. So it's sort of like I'm telling you that something is urgent, but I don't really have any leverage on actually addressing the problem.
So that's where we could probably
Yeah,
help.
because we could get parental support, because you see the emails. from people, and
So
I
I
know
see
Marvin
the
is a
emails,
problem.
I get sometimes, rightfully so, angry emails.
Yes.
Because the heat is
Yes.
out of, we were
Excessive.
there, so you saw it, so
Right.
it's excessive.
It's concerning.
And so it's concerning, and so then I then have to like reply to a kid's mom to say like, thank you so much, thank you for your patience, we'll try to address it. We brought in air conditioning when it was not time for air conditioners.
Oh, really?
Like
Okay.
units. So that to me is part of sort of like my frustration is that there are things that are urgent that we can't necessarily address.
So you can flag us and facilities with you, so
Thank you.
I'd be happy to, like, step in there and show, like, this is what we're seeing. Yeah.
11 in HR.
11? Okay.
No, Gabby just did.
Oh, she did, okay. Thank you, Gabby.
Yeah.
And staying with finance, you had mentioned that there's designated staff personnel. How many
That's just a role, not a position. So he primarily works with the schools for the budget, because what we have is, we have individual finance. So Joe works with schools, we have somebody who works with the special office departments, specialized in team. So Joe is the only person that works with schools on the budget side, but he also has an accounting and payroll team, and within the accounting and payroll team, and they work
At this point, you have less than 2 minutes. You should be wrapping up your final questions and start transitioning to your next group. And as a reminder, at this point, we are going to continue to cycle in the same direction that we started so that everybody's in the right location. Everybody will be transitioning to their last station.
All right, you go.
Great, so we're excited to share with you a couple of our goals that are going to focus around digital learning, equity, and inclusion. One of the interesting things you may see here is that our goals actually cross all of the overarching goals. So the ones that we're going to be touching on today is I'll be talking a little bit about items in goals 1, 3, and 5. Dr. McBride will continue talking in goal 5 and our goal 6. So we've gone through the protocol already. So in goal 1, let me kind of start off though talking about the fact that what I'm really talking about tonight is all of our digital learning initiatives. And if you look at our mission of being future ready, really I can sum this up by saying it's like our digital learning is essential to ensure that every one of our scholars has the skills to be college and career ready. And that's one thing that we want to make sure that we assure, so there's a through line through everything that we do. And digital learning is a key component in making all of this happen. So part of that is making sure that we actually train our teachers in what they need to be able to do in a classroom. And we do have a national organization called ISTE, which is the International Society of Technology and Education. This year, one of our goals in professional development, it's in goal 1. You'll hear more about what we're doing with that when we talk to Rob and his team. But specifically around digital learning, we had 2 cohorts of teachers go through a credentialing process. We received a grant so that we were able to actually put them through some online learning, and they're developing portfolios that actually focus on taking core curriculum that they're using and augmenting it through the use of technology, so that we basically make sure that those skills that we talk about being future ready, collaborators, critical thinkers, all of that is incorporated. They develop these portfolios, and then these portfolios are graded, Once they're completed, they actually get a certification that goes along with that. I was talking to Joe a second ago. Joe knows a number of his teachers that are in POTUS that are actually going through this. We have 27 teachers right now that are going through the cohort. We're looking to finish in August. And then we're looking to continually expand that. We did have a large enough grant, though, to be able to bring in 2 cohorts of teachers to go through this online training. It is a rigorous process. It's usually about, as Joe mentioned earlier, 60 to 90 hours. It's some of it's online, yes. Yeah, so there's some online courses that they take. There's a lot of work they do on their own, and then it's graded, and they, like you said, they get feedback on it. So we're excited that that's happening and continuing. In operations, you guys heard a little bit more about what was going on with operations, but there are a couple of digital learning goals that actually fit within operations as well. The first one isn't as much of a digital learning goal, but it was the implementation of our policies this year. I'll talk about that in a moment. And then the second piece, though, is really focused around a through line of everything that we do with digital learning, which is our digital learning strategic plan. So quickly cover our model policy implementation. As you're aware, we took the time at the beginning of the year, we decided to move forward with a new model and protocol on how we manage our policies. So we, and as has a number of other districts in Connecticut, around taking this idea of a model policy program, which is in partnership with our attorney, Shipman and Goodwin, that these are policies that are standard, that keep us in compliance for what we need to be in compliance for, and they're updated on an annual basis to make sure that we're never out of compliance. So we will continue with that process. The goal this year was to take all of those policies, implement them, and then look at our older policies and which ones did we need to reinstate. And so as of 2 days ago, or I guess Monday, we pretty much have completed that process. So we're really excited about that, and we're going to continue to maintain that moving forward. So that was our model policy implementation. Our digital learning strategic plan. So a few years ago, we entered into an efficiency study with the city. And the one recommendation that they made a number of accommodations, but one recommendation is that we have a strategic plan for technology and digital learning. So we actually created that strategic plan and are in the process now of implementing it. So we're really excited about that. Our strategic plan, though, is a little different than a traditional IT strategic plan. When we talk about what is our core focus as a district is our scholars and making sure that they're successful. So everything that we do, including everything we do in technology, has to focus around our students. So our digital learning strategic plan includes what are we doing in IT, what are we doing for instruction, and what are we doing with data backups. So all of those different components are included in there, and we now have a plan that we're moving forward with in each one of those areas with annual goals that we're looking to achieve and improve. So we're really, really excited to kind of get this in place. Like I said, it creates a through line to making sure that our students are future ready and that there's actually a connection with what we do with technology. Goal 5 focuses on the development of our instructional programming options to increase opportunities for all of our students and to ensure that students have access to high quality instruction and support. Within that goal, we included our STEAM learning initiatives, which once again, making sure that students have opportunities to learn. We have a lot of different individualized learning opportunities here as well. And so the first few goals in this really focus around what we did with STEAM, what we did with our digital citizenship, how we've actually implemented our Future Ready program as well. So I'm going to talk about those, and then I'm going to pass this over to Dr. McBride to talk about our equity initiatives and stuff that also tie with this. So right now, to my first slides. One of our first objectives here, making sure that we offer our students what they need, is to have a new STEAM learning process in place to be able to augment what's going on. Very similar to ISTE, we actually had our library media specialists and all of our digital learning coaches, which are essential in this work, to work with the Connecticut Science Center. They learned about the next generation science standards for the first part of the year. They then spent the second third of the year learning how to implement strategies to augment our current curriculum. And then they spent the third part of the year doing job embedded work with teachers within their school. So it may have been a certain grade level, it may have been a certain teacher, it may have been just a library media specialist implementing it, but changing over our curriculum in science in different areas and augmenting it by including these STEAM practices within it. So it was basically enhancing and improving our curriculum that we have in place. So we've been really, really excited about this. The one thing we didn't complete with this is we wanted to have pre and post assessments for the actual units of study that were created. That's going to be implemented in this next year. We just never got to that piece of it. We created the work and it was implemented, but we need a better way of assessing it. So that'll be a goal to kind of complete by next year. We also received grants at the middle school level. At 3 of our 4 middle schools, we have these new Verizon Innovation Labs, and I know that you've heard a bit about them. Our goal this year was to actually implement and put these in place, which as of December, the construction was complete. And over the spring, we've identified our teachers in each building and our lead staff that will be working with Arizona State University in looking at 3 different core curriculum areas that are going to be covered in these labs. The first is going to be in AI, the second is going to be in 3D printing, and then in virtual reality too. So there are stations for all of those in place. Our goal for next year is to make sure that at least 150 students in each one of the buildings goes through the curriculum, and that'll increase over time. But for our first year, that is really the goal, making sure that we actually get students involved in the process. So we're very, very excited about this. Our digital learning curriculum. One of our goals is to make sure at the K level that we're actually training our students in understanding what digital learning is. So that includes being safe online, etiquette online. It includes, as of this year, we added in research skills to that, so there are core lessons that are there. And next year, our goal with this is to include some computer basics. So an example would be at 2nd grade, learning how to copy and paste. These are core lessons that are being taught by the library and media specialists in almost all of the buildings as students go through, and this becomes their curriculum as we move forward. And we'll keep enhancing this each year. We developed pre and post tests of this, which we have implemented. And if you looked at any one of the grade levels, to make a long story short, from the pre-test to the post-test, in any specific grade level, we looked at the averages, they went up anywhere from 7 percentage points to 25 percentage points. So in the case of 7 percentage points, it means if you got a 70 at the beginning, you got a 79 at the end of the study. So we did see increases across the board with this. And then finally, our Future Ready programs. With our Future Ready program, this includes 3 different programs that we've implemented. We want to make sure that we have opportunities for our kids and meet them wherever they need to be, when they need to be with their learning. So it's not just focused around digital learning, it's using digital learning to make sure that we meet the goals. This includes our Virtual Academy, our Twilight Academy, and it also includes our Exposure program, NAIOP. They have shared staff that go across the board with that. We've been implementing this. It's been in the old Briggs building, and we're expanding for next year. In that space, we currently have 37 students that are in the Virtual Academy this year. We have 43 students in Twilight, and we have about 22 students in NAIOP, and a number of them were able to return to their schools prior to the 180-day expulsion period because of the process. So we're really excited about trying to put in more restorative practices. Those students now have access to things like a social worker, a guidance counselor. We're really looking at changing the way that we actually look at these programs. We don't even call them alternative programs. It just happens to be some students need to learn in this manner. So we're really, really excited about expanding that. We have right now we're on track with those students. They're 11th and 12th graders. We're predicting that 34 of the students in the program will be graduating this year. So, and those were students that usually were the ones that were most needy that we were losing at different times. So it really has been, a godsend for those students. And you'll hear from a couple of them at our next board meeting. I think they're going to be coming in and talking to you real quickly. So we're excited about that. But that was our process. So just to sake of time, Dr. McBride.
Good evening, everyone. So I just want to frame the conversation around these three specific goals that specifically focus on the idea of the systems and structures that make equity tangible and actualized throughout the district. Professional development being provided around the work, but then more specifically how we are implementing high structural standards as a result of those individual structures and systems. So I'll start here. Professional learning has been a priority in ensuring that we are providing individuals with the necessary tools to identify where we can grow in the area of equity. So at every school we have what are known as equity ambassadors. And those equity ambassadors engage in a year-long professional learning service through the Equity Institute with a focus around mitigating bias. That was the focus this year. So the idea is that they had conversations, they received tools, that they then in turn would sort of take back to their individual school community and engage in those conversations to support teachers with how they're thinking about their scholars, how they're supporting their scholars with instruction, et cetera, around the idea of beliefs, but also the practices that support making sure all students have access to learning. And so this was a huge success. We were surveyed at the end of the year. All the teachers who were part of the Equity Ambassadors, as well as staff members who found the value in being able to support their teams, but also their own growth in instruction. And so next year the focus is going to be around specifically, now that we've learned about how to identify implicit bias and own our own implicit bias, how do we take that information to really focus on restorative practices within our classroom, in our school community. So our next year will be focused around restorative practices with the Equity Institute. Another area around professional learning is around instruction. And so last year we partnered with Unbound Ed to have our teachers get access to learning about how to unpack standards, make sure that they're teaching to the standards so students can actually have rigorous instruction. And so we found that many of our staff had not had exposure to this process. So we commissioned them to come this year to work with us again throughout the district in adopting our new focus around GLEAM. GLEAM means that our instruction is grade level, it's engaging for all students, it's affirming, and it's meaningful. So we had a cohort of educators and a cohort of leaders for the past 10 months. Every month engage in this work to identify what are the tools that they need, but also where are our current practices and what do we have to do to make sure that we are providing a GLEAM instructional experience. And so that led us to what our next year's focus for the district will be around standards-based instruction. No matter who you are, no matter where your current ability level is, every student should have access to standards-based instruction. And so Unbound Ed will be leading that work for professional development again next year. And starting this summer, as a matter of fact. So we did our walkthrough at 4 schools at the end of the year. We went through Kendall, we went to Conus, we went to Fox Run, and we went to Brian McMahon. So we had all a spectrum of schools, and we utilized the tools to see, is what we're seeing in the classroom grade level equivalent? Is it engaging for all of our students? Are we affirming our kids, making them feel like they are valued and important? And is the work meaningful? Is it real world experience? Project-based learning. And so some schools, in some areas we're high in, like affirming. We're doing great at grade level is where we're kind of need to amplify, which is why the work about impacting the standards will be the focus next year. So that has been completed. Next, each of our schools have an equity team, and each of those equity teams develop an equity goal as part of their school improvement plan. So they work with myself, they work with Marianne and Sandy to identify those goals, and they track those goals throughout the year. So the equity goal last year could have been around gifted and talented identification of students, could have been around behavioral issues, it could have been around growth for specific populations like MLLs, SWDs on the NWE assessment. And so last year, all of our schools have the goals. Every team met monthly, and every team has met their individual goal. Now, next year's going to look a little different because schools have the opportunity to choose goals, and some still didn't have a real understanding of what the equity goal is. So they were prioritizing, let's say, for example, our Black students are coming to school. So let's make that the goal. That's more of an attendance goal as opposed to a equity goal, of changing something that's going to have a huge impact on the culture of the school. So we're going to have a little bit more of a focused view this year in improving, and working in collaboration with the school, helping them identify, yeah, that's the equity goal, nah, that's not so much. But all of our schools have them, they've had the meetings, and they all met them. So that was completed this year. Structures. So we also engaged last year in an 8-month-long research-based book study to think about how we are engaging in grading for all of our students. So we had a variety of stakeholders who were part of this 8-month study to look at our current grading policies and matching it with what the research says to see where we are in alignment or areas that we need to grow in. And so out of that came specific recommendations from this group, this committee, to present to our policy committee for consideration of adopting new policies that are aligned with the research around equitable practices. And we're currently in the process right now to see whether or not we're going to be adopting all or some iterations of that. And the next step of this work will be identifying a roadmap to rolling it out, which will involve quite a bit of engagement from teachers, parents, community members to see how we can figure out a way that makes it digestible and doable, and more importantly, successful and effective for all involved. So that has been completed. Dr. Estrella and I visit every individual school at least once a year. We meet with the principal. We do almost a half-day walk with each of our principals, asking them about their data, asking them about their culture, asking about parent engagement, asking them about professional learning they provide to support teachers, and asking them specifically about how they are supporting the groups that need the most support, whether it be your SWDs, your student disabilities, that's what SWDs are, whether it be your boys of color, whether it be your MLLs, and then what are the structures in place that you are enacting to help move them around the data that you're communicating to us. So that allows us to have our own pulse on where schools are and more specifically what schools need support in those particular areas. So all of those have happened this year. So every school has had a visit from myself and Dr. Estrella and received feedback from us around areas of growth and areas of celebration as well as accommodations. Another structure around the social emotional component is our mentorship programs. We have engaged for the first full year of My Brothers and My Sisters Keeper, designed to empower young boys and girls of color. So they had a year-long, they have monthly meetings around specific topics or values that have been identified as the priority for those organizations, aligned with events that correspond to that. We surveyed our young people about the impact of the program twice to make to kind of get their feel as to how it's helping them. Next year, we're going to add the academic component. So they're going to have a baseline data from all individuals in both programs, to specifically ELA and math, to be able to see if by the end of the year, this program not only supports them feeling good about themselves, feeling empowered, feeling connected, but then also receiving support around the academics component as well. So that is the next phase of that particular structure. Student Voice is a brand new one. We had affinity groups that are just getting off of the ground, that we're looking for them to be student driven around specific areas. We have a Hispanic, we have a Black, we have an LGBTQIA+, and we have a feminist group. And so what happens is the students come up with their own topics, their own agendas, and they are let the sponsor, who kind of sits to the side, helps to kind of guide them, but it's allowing them to have a space to own the space and kind of talk about things that specifically pertain to each of those individual groups. So they can give us ideas and provide that information to the district about things they want to see happen, and hopefully give them voice and power. So that has been enacted as well. And we also had five of these, not four, district-wide events that were designed to have each school engage in research about the contributions and importance of specific groups. We had Hispanic Heritage, we had Black History, we had Women's Month, we're having LGBTQIA+ this month, as well as First Book. And so the idea is to showcase how each of our schools are engaging in the work, but more specifically by how we're bringing it all together as one district community. We're acknowledging our diversity, but also providing information about how each of our schools are approaching learning about these particular groups. So they will continue again next year. So all of those were met. We're really excited about workforce development, also lives up in my division. We had our very first workforce development career fair, where we had 230 scholars and families in attendance, which is phenomenal. This work is led by Carol Witcher-Toff. She's a former guidance counselor at P-Tech, but she's now on my team. And so all of our scholars have their career pathways identified, which is a phenomenal feat. She's providing a wealth of information to families about the creation of a website that has had 35,000 hits since she created this informational page about all of the options and opportunities related to career and college opportunities. And we're really excited about our intern programs. We have 18 current scholars in 3 different divisions who are receiving training, but also getting paid to kind of get them interested specifically in education. So we're trying to create that pipeline. Lord knows we need teachers or people to get interested in education. And so this is all new, and we're excited about that. So kudos to her around that work. And then one of the most fundamental pieces around the research and analytics. As Dr. Stray communicated previously, we were not prioritizing the use of data, but now we're developing a data-rich culture to allow us to make informed decisions, but also help us provide and give information about how we can best support our schools and our scholars. And so currently, we have a dashboard in support of RISE, where we are monitoring all of our students at the 9th grade being on track towards graduation. At one time, we only had one school, Broderick Man. Now we have all 4 of our high schools are utilizing this platform. We have at any point in time information about where our scholars are from the 9th grade and their ability to graduate on time, so we can make those adjustments. We also have established data leads at every individual school who are the carriers in the support of data analyzation. And they're being trained by Kristen from my team to making sure that they can support the teacher team meetings, the ILT meetings as well. So they're the data champions within each of those buildings. So as you all know, we are constantly getting information about the state and how we are doing in comparison to the state expectations around assessment from SBAC, NWE, etc. So Diane Filardo has presented to you all multiple times about where we are currently. So that's just, that work lives underneath my district as well, to hear all the specific kind of assessments that we get reporting out to you all around. Smarter Balance, SAT, pre-SATs, NWEA, Next Generation Science as well. We also have engaged in SQRs, our school quality reviews, which are comprehensive support being provided to all of our schools. We do, Heidi did the first 12 schools the first year, she just did the second 12, where we're looking at everything from instruction to professional development, to data analyzation, to teacher support and feedback, to, what else am I missing, systems and structures as well. So each of our schools get an idea about where they fall in those areas, so areas that they're doing really, really well in, and areas that they're developing in. And see, after that initial evaluation of where the school falls, we have a school improvement team that then goes in for about a week or so to really hone in on the area of growth. So if it's math in 3rd grade, they really kind of come in and support the teachers, support the leader with strategies, ideas as to help them improve that. And then that team will work for the next couple of months around those practices and strategies, hopefully seeing an improvement by the end of the year in that particular area. And then a report is provided to the school leader, who has the opportunity to look at it, review it, and say, well, this is right, this is wrong, etc. And then once it's finalized, once the leader signs off that the document is as appropriate, as fitting as can be, it is finalized through our office, and they receive the final report, which can be shared to the school community through the principal, because they have access to it. And one of the things that we're most excited about is that we have a variety of data all over the place. When we talk about a data culture, it's not because we didn't have data, it's that it's in silos. And so we partnered with the Harvard Strategic Project to and secured a fellow or two fellows who are developing our one-stop shop dashboard, which will have all of our students' information in one place. Their attendance data, their behavior data, their assessment data, their interim assessment data, their demographics, and everything. And the idea is that parents will have access to it, teachers will have access to it, the district will have access to it, and everybody can have clear transparency about where a child is from K through 12, not just 9th grade. So we expanded it from what RISE was providing us, was just 9th grade. We want to be able to, have it for our elementary students and our middle schools. So we know early on, who's on track from K, not just 9th grade. And leaders need that information because that can figure out how they support their teachers with supporting those students and different programming and curriculum pieces. So we were really excited about that. That's looking to be launched this fall. So that is going to be a game changer, I think, for many of us. Even at the district level, that we'll be able to have something to be able to roll up so we can say, as a district, all of our third graders are here. Or as a district, we have an issue with chronic absenteeism here. So that will be very, very helpful for allowing us to make the adjustments. And then lastly, our goal is around communication. We, as you know from the actual Evergreen study, we revamped our communications. And we brought on a new communications team to provide more transparency, more engagement, more various mediums that appeal to different people's style, whether it be emails, text, videos, social media platforms. And the team has done an amazing job of getting information out to parents, promoting events, providing a wealth of resources through all of the various strategies that they're actually employing right now. That is all for communications. And we just made it right at the 15-minute mark. Good job.
34 seconds. Is that coming?
Huh?
Betty's program?
What program?
Betty's program?
Oh yeah, that's coming.
It's coming?
That'll be next year. It's starting this summer.
Oh, this summer?
It's starting this summer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Many questions this time, so go ahead. So you talked about the platform that would have all of the data in one place.
Walmart.
Right. So right now it's in several different places, right?
Yes.
So, but even for elementary schools, right? So everything is, so there's one
Just wanted to let people know that we are at the 15-minute mark. We should be transitioning to Q&A.
That's what these people are.
So right now, like if a parent wanted to get that, they do have access to, we talked about RISE, right? Where you keep the attendance.
So we have attendance data, yes.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
We have that for everybody.
For everybody,
We have
right.
That's really through there was also parents can see that through Power School.
Power School,
Yes.
okay, all right.
But some of these data systems we're pulling from Power School and all the other places and putting it in one spot for to be able to help support what's going on with instruction and really it's research and analytics team making those decisions on what's needed there and how it's all going to connect and what it should look like.
So currently we have a system called Otis.
Right.
So a great practice is to make at intervals be able to check to see where kids are. So oftentimes people have an assessment at the beginning of the year, at the end of the year, but then it's too late. You want to have interim assessments to be able to know that Thomas has this standard, he can keep moving, or Thomas needs some more support. So let's figure out what additional resources he needs. So we didn't have interim assessments up until this year. So Otis now provides us at the end of each unit an assessment that allows to say, hey, Janine, she mastered this particular standard. that information now will be available to you as a parent, to you as a student, to kind of, and more specifically to the school, so they can say, all right, all of our third grades have mastered this particular unit. We're doing a great job. Let's keep moving. Or hold up. 80% of our kids did not master this standard, so we got to go back and do a reteach or whatever that looks like. And I think that's the granularity we're trying to get people to make those informed decisions to make sure kids are getting the support they need to master the standards. So that's all new.
First of all, it's freezing over here.
It is. All of a sudden. It was right before, and all of a sudden the AC came on. And I started, I was like, I should make it a little chilly.
Ralph, when we're talking about the Verizon Innovative Learning Labs, we're talking about Arizona State.
Yes.
Working. Can you talk more about that collaboration and how that's going to work?
Yeah. So basically, a number of our teachers are going to be having online training. With Arizona State has actually created units of study around AI, around virtual reality, and 3D printing that we're implementing as the curriculums within those labs. Now, that doesn't mean that's the only thing that's done in those labs.
Okay.
You know, so there may be in time. The ultimate goal is that that lab mentor, as well as a digital learning coach, really work with the teacher so that if they're teaching a history lesson, a social studies teacher, they want to bring, if there's something that they want to actually build in a virtual reality setting, they can actually have the ability to do that.
So it'll be open to different types of teachers?
Yes, oh, definitely. So that's the lab mentor actually manages the scheduling of how that all works. But I think right now, you know, you're going to walk before you can run. So the criteria for the first year is at least 150 students to go through the curriculum that's there. But obviously, we can get more than 150 students in there on a regular year. So there'll be other opportunities for kids to get exposed to it and actually start using that as well as teachers.
The labs look great so far, what I've seen.
Yeah. Have you had a chance to try anything in there? Or?
No.
Oh, yeah. It's those virtual glasses are.
Oh yeah.
Oh really?
They're a trip. They're a trip. Yep.
Anything I found virtual is just amazing. It's really weird. Where were you at? Yeah, well,
No, I was the left answer.
We got time.
I actually do have a question. First comment, I was really, I love that you are incorporating the equity and justice, or not equity, but the equity inclusion practices with the SEL. That's so important because one of the things that I often would see around discipline was sometimes teachers just not understanding the culture and how important that really is in guiding those students. So that's terrific. I'm really glad to see that. How was the equity ambassadors chosen?
School leader.
Just the school leader?
The school leader. Some choose their AP, some choose teachers, some choose counselors. But it's individuals who want to do it because they have to. They're going to be the ones who are going to be the carriers of it. So you want to force people who don't believe in it to do it. So school leaders choose them.
And then another question was around, so the dashboard is fabulous, really fabulous. So, and Ralph, you're aware of the dashboard that Norwalk Access is working on, there's work that they've been doing around preschool.
Yes.
And collecting data. So is there some...
So if you can imagine the scorecard that they created at preschool that we use, that's basically what's being built at K. That's it right there. Like, it's just instead of it being for pre-K, it's actually for K-12.
Yeah. And so you're able to access the work that they're doing into school, into kindergarten, into all of this.
Whatever data sets we have access to, we want to combine them all.
Yeah. Paul works like with the team as well too, so they actually have first back. So.
I mean, it's just incredible the data that's being collected from dashboards. And then we did have interim assessments. Except, I think what I'm hearing, just from this group, is think it sounds like we've got follow through. You know, and
So our current curriculum, there were no interim assessments, even as we had to develop them. So there were no interim assessments for our current curriculum.
Okay, I hear that.
Yeah, so that's
Because we were doing it as teams in each school,
Right.
and they were not in the curriculum. Right about that.
So now it's already embedded. So once you reach the end of this particular unit, there's an assessment coming right out, or the checkpoints as well, that they're called. So that have been built out with the collaboration of the actual creators of the curriculum and Chris.
Yeah, everyone was just kind of. We
So
did do
we want to make. Let's see. We want to make it a standardized practice where you all may have done it, somebody else may not have.
Right.
So now it's wherever you are in a district, you should still have access to the same assessment.
I think you guys have made strides, making, like you said, making it so that everybody's doing it. I think in the past, what happened, the schools were like little fiefdoms, fiefdoms. Some schools were doing one thing and others were doing it, and then there wasn't a consistency where, I mean, you know, clearly each school might have a little different culture, or whatever, but in terms of how the curriculum was being executed, there were instances where, you know, some people were doing it this way and others took a great spot.
And selfishly, we know common assessments allow the district to be able to have those, be able to identify patterns and trends across the district. So if you're doing something different and you're doing something different, how can I track to know, compare? It's not the same, but if everybody's doing the exact same thing, I can say as a district, this is where we are with this particular standard. All of our kids are mastering this or they are not. Or our third grade is rocking it out, but our sixth grade is having some problems with math. So that the common assessment piece is so essential to be able to make informed decisions and supports.
And then if a specific school is happening, that's where like you triangulate everything through like an SQR process and make sure that then their improvement plans are built in a way that makes sense, and you've got the data to be able to do that. You're training teachers to make sure that they can achieve those. Each school has a little bit of a different theme. It doesn't mean that you're not still teaching. You need to have a standard that you're teaching to. And that's really the focus for next year's standards-based instruction.
Standards-based instruction is the focus.
When you were talking about Glean, you were saying there's a little off on grade level. What kind of issues are you finding?
So again, we had a small group to pull from. We visited 4 schools. It could just been 4 schools we went to or classes that they went to on that day. But when you look for grade level, you want to make sure that when you think of that teachers are clear about the actual standards and the actual tasks measure up to the actual standards. And sometimes people have their own interpretation of what the task should look like that aligns to the standards, and there may be some, they're not quite there. For example, if I'm teaching around figurative language, and the standard calls for being able to compare and contrast a variety of different authors. If I'm a 12th grade teacher, I should be utilizing Thoreau and Shakespeare, I don't know. And someone may choose to use a 5th grade comparison. So that's not grade level, even though you may have the actual focus right, but the actual grade level of frequency isn't where it needs to be. But this also goes back to a lot of people don't know how to unpack standards because we haven't been taught. And I think that's the piece. So it's not that they're doing anything intentionally wrong, because you don't know that what you may be doing may not hit the standard right where you need to. And so the work is around making sure that we all get to hitting the actual standard. But guess what? It's not foreign to Norwalk. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. It's hard. And it's constantly evolving.
I remember being in a lot of different professional development, and that was our job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And especially we haven't been trained to do it. And so that's one of the reasons why we're bringing in the people to actually walk us all through, so we're all on the same page with understanding what teaching to the standard really looks like. But again, they gave us kudos around the engagement piece, the affirming piece, and they provided the artifacts for it. I don't know if Alex sent you all the report. If not, then we'll make sure you all have it tomorrow from the actual walkthrough.
And that whole unpacking standards too, once again, that's another example of where, you've got coaches that are out there. You really, it's hard for teachers to be able to do this just in the classroom. They need supports on a regular basis, and we need to make sure that we're giving them supports, whether it's digital learning coaches, whether it's instructional lab, that they're helping with that process of making sure that it's actually being dealt with.
That spiral.
Yes.
That spiral.
With the SQRs, what kind of feedback are you getting, or is it different feedback that you're getting now with this group than you did with the first group?
So every school has an area that they're really strong in, and then every school has an area that they're, one school may be really good with coaching, like they're all about the the SEL components, and they are just getting into the grasp of the curriculum. Some people may be really focused on the curriculum, or but not really professional development just yet. So it varies. That's which is why it's individualized. But for the most, and I know people, I guess we all get that. We all want to be A+, high performing, but usually the first year most people are developing in those areas. It's your very first introduction to this tool, and you don't necessarily know all of the nuances of it. So the feedback is important. That if I say, please ensure you're providing actual feedback to teachers consistently. You may do it for 2 teachers, but are you doing it for all teachers? And that would break you from ineffective to developing, because you're doing it, but you're doing it for everybody. So it could be as simple as nuances as that. So
What kind of feedback are you getting from the administrators now going through it? As far as, are people feeling very uptight when this is happening still? I know the first time it was coming around, people were freaking out a little bit.
So I can go to my email, because Heidi emails me, and she's like, she'll be like, so they received it well. so this person had a question, but it went well. Like, so they're kind of, I guess, adapting to it. Yeah. And realizing it's not a assessment of who you are. It's a growing tool. You're not being evaluated on it, and I think we all want to get that A. Sometimes we are not there yet. And sometimes it's all that room for growth. Even us, like I'm gonna see. I mean, you see right here, I gotta get the feedback to move up to be the B and A. Thank you as well.
I just wanted to thank the teams.
Hello, can you hear me?
Everyone, all the staff members, the teams, all the information. I felt like I was in school again. I had learned a lot of things. We were able to ask a lot of questions. I think that sometimes, the public doesn't understand that we also need professional development. And this is, the Board of Ed's professional development, where we get to see where the district is heading, what the goals are, and that we can ask all kinds of questions. And with that being said, we're moving on our next item on the agenda. I need a motion to go into executive session for superintendent evaluation. Motion by Godfrey, seconded by Janine. All in favor? Unanimous, and we'll be back once we're done. Thank you. Good evening. We are back from executive session. I want to thank my colleagues and Dr. Estrella for an evening of a lot of questions, a lot of details. I want everybody to know that we do not take this very lightly, and there's a lot of discussions back and forth. I don't know if any of my colleagues want to make a comment at this moment.
I think it was a very productive and robust conversation, and I appreciated the discussions that we had.
Okay, thank you. All right, next item. We have some items to approve this evening. The first item is approval of new superintendent goals and expectations for 2023-24. Motion to approve?
Motion.
Godfrey, seconded by Janine. All in favor, say aye, raise your hand.
Aye.
Okay, that's a unanimous vote. Thank you. Our next item is approval to authorize the board chair to enter into a contract extension with the superintendent for the next 3 years. I know there's a lot of questions in the public right now. This is adding 1 year to her contract, her already existing contract. Motion to approve. Kara, seconded by Godfrey, all in favor? Thank you, that's unanimous vote. And thank you everybody for being here. Thank you, because it's been a very, very long day. So motion to adjourn. Kara and Janine, thank you. The time is now 10:32. Thank you, everyone.